As a rider, safety is part of your routine. It's second nature. Does that mean safe isn't exciting? Or could safe actually make everything else possible, like jumping higher or running to rope that calf? Safe gives you the freedom to ride the way you love. And Safe provides high-quality nutrition you need to have confidence all your horse's needs are met. Make Safe exciting with Safe Choice feeds. Learn more about the full lineup at neutrinoworld.com/safechoice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. I'm a social worker in North Carolina and a young-ish Black equestrian, and you are tuned into the Young Black Equestrian podcast.
I am a young
Black equestrian.
equestrian.
Black equestrian.
I'm a young Black equestrian.
I am a young Black equestrian.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Young Black Equestrians with your host, Abriana Johnson. Today, I am joined by Elizabeth, who I am already, as soon as she got on camera, like complete vibe, okay? Because we got the hats on. And, you know, I've been reading up on her website about all of the work that she does and how it integrates with horses. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I am so happy, Elizabeth, to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I think I found you, or I must have found you somehow like on Twitter or something. And I was like, what is this gal doing? So I love your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But we're not even gonna talk about me, okay? This is all about you. All right. So just start off by telling me about yourself. You know, who are you and where are you from?
Awesome. Well, my name is Elizabeth McCorvey. I'm currently living in Hendersonville, North Carolina, which is outside of Asheville, North Carolina, if you're familiar, in the mountains. And I'm a social worker. I have been, involved with horses since I was maybe 10. I'm 30 now. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, which is the horse capital of the world, or the thoroughbred capital of the world, if you're picky. From Florida.
Yeah.
And I got involved with working with horses and in therapy when I was in graduate school. Mm-hmm. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been working on integrating horses and working with people from a mental health perspective and helping people heal. Mm-hmm. All of their trauma, and anything that you can bring to therapy, you can bring to a therapy office, you can bring to therapy with a horse. So I love doing that. Wow. And I'm also recently within the last year or so, involved with an organization that we're creating some diversity, equity, and inclusion programs for people who for white people who want to learn and unlearn how racism and colonialism manifests in their lives through working with horses. So lots of exciting stuff.
I love that. I love that so much. I can't wait to see how that develops. But how did you get into the mental health field in itself?
Yeah, so I'm a social worker. I went to undergrad at the University of Kentucky, and I got my bachelor's in social work. Mm-hmm. And then sometime in graduate school, or between undergrad and grad school, someone was like, you might really enjoy being a therapist. Probably they said that because I'm opinionated and I like to tell people what to do, although that's not really what therapy is. But at some point I really got the felt sense that I really love working with people. I love hearing people's stories. I love making connections. I love being alongside people's journeys. And so that is what I get to do as a therapist. And it's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot of that recently for myself, not really in the therapy realm, but in the coaching capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about how that plays a part in the work that you do.
Yeah, so my coaching is specifically around anti-racism. And so I work with therapists who want to figure out how racism might be showing up in the therapy room, because anytime you work with clients of different walks of life, everything that's part of their story comes into the room with them, including race. And so in my coaching, I work with therapists and mental health professionals who really want to take a deep dive into how their upbringing might impact the way that they show up with clients, and the way that their perspective is shaped by the society around us.
Yeah, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. I know through my own therapy journey, I have definitely targeted Black women as, you know, the people that I want to have that vulnerability with. And it's simply because if I say something to you, I don't want to have to explain every ounce of my experience, because when you share kind of that kind of position in society, some things don't need to be said.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
and so that's very important for people, especially as they are trying to find therapists. You know, it's not, therapy doesn't work, or gosh, I had a bad therapist. It's like, but does your therapist show or have lived experiences that are similar to yours so that they can make informed recommendations for your situation?
Exactly. You said it. It's because I live in a community that's very, very predominantly white. And so Black women, Black folks don't have the option of choosing a Black therapist for them. And so it's so important for me in my community that the white therapists who are going to see their Black clients know a little cultural humility.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that don't translate at all.
Yeah, and it's okay, but the understanding needs to be had, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I need my therapist to say, if I have a white therapist, I need them to say, I know that I don't know what I don't know, and I know that our experiences are very different.
Yeah, that is beautiful. So how does your kind of your proximity to anti-racist education and the coaching, how does that influence how has it influenced your opinions or your experiences within the horse industry?
I think that's a good question. I think as many young Black female equestrians or any young equestrians of color know, our industry is saturated with whiteness, and not just the white people, but like white culture. Like when I think about the differences between like Black cowboys and like the history of what it's looked like for people of color and Black people to be involved with horses, it is so different than like the dressage, like uptightness. And I can speak to this because I'm an eventer, so I know what it's like to, you know, get dressed up and you have to, there for a while you had to wear black boots. It wasn't cool to wear brown boots, and it's like so much politics and anyway. And so I think that I was like that growing up, and I didn't really step back and take a look at how that influenced the way that I showed up in the horse world until the last 5 or 10 years, because I think that it was so, I mean, I was just trying to survive out there. And when we're
like many of us.
yeah. And so I just wanted to enjoy myself. I was just trying to fit in. I was just trying to look the way I needed to look, because like, I know that when I ride a dressage test, I know that I already don't look like everybody else that is riding that same dressage test. So even if I do it perfectly, you know, like so many of us have been taught, we have to do twice as well to get half as much. So I have to be that much more perfect because I already don't fit the aesthetic of what people are used to seeing, what judges are used to seeing. And I don't know what biases they have, subconscious or not, might be impacting the way that I ride something. versus the way a white rider might ride something. And so when I was competing a lot, I was just trying to like fly under the radar. But now that I've been able to really take a look at how my race has impacted the way that I've shown up in horse sports, I'm like, wow, like that probably, I mean, I know that didn't feel good to be the only person that looked like me. It didn't feel good to have people say, oh, is that your horse? Oh, is that your truck? Oh, is that your trailer? Oh, are you leasing that? Like, none of that feels good. And it impacts the way that I'm able to enjoy the sport. And I'm not sure if that was your question, but that's just what that made me think of.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And something that you said was that you, despite having to show up and perform at your best at what you've practiced at, you still had to fly under the radar. And I think that's important to explore as we are, trying to get kids into equestrian life. I'm not sure how many episodes of the podcast you've heard or if you went back to the beginning, but I am a trail rider. I have shown in hand, so I've done a little bit of a showing. I understand it, I grasp it, but horses are leisure for me. I want to go out and ride in the woods and come home, party and hang out with the rest of the Black people that like horses. So a lot of my experience kind of from the outside have been in horse sports a little bit because I showed locally, but also outside looking in, you want to perform and you want to show up for not only your horse, but the judges, yet still having to fly under the radar.
How do we excel under those conditions?
How do we excel under those conditions? Yeah, I think that's very important for people to understand. And when I'm having conversations with, I'm on the DEI committee for USEF, it's like you need to understand that people they're walking a fence. They're walking a fence of showing up and being known and really wanting to give it their all, but not so much that they're singled out. Drawing that much attention to themselves has historically proven, especially in the horse industry, to not always be the best. So how do you do both?
You talking about that just made me think about the amount of stress that I think that those of us who do show have, and I don't show anymore, but just the amount of stress that we had to carry. I can't just show up at the horse park after dark and not think about if I have a wristband, is that clearly showing? If I'm showing up after hours and I need to show my health papers to the person, is that safe for me? Are they going to be what are you doing here? Are they going to be suspicious of me? There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot. And so then that's the additional stress that I'm carrying into a competition, and that's not good.
Yeah. I completely understand. And then on top of that, we talk about how sensitive horses are. So how are we to go into this already stressful environment and be expected to compete with our partners when we're harboring that stress consciously or subconsciously? At this point, dealing with horses, it really don't matter.
Right.
The energy is there, period. How does that affect our relationship with our animals?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Do you know, that made me think of too, I'm sure you that whole catastrophe in the Olympics where that little white rider got mad at her horse during that do you know what I'm talking about? The triathlon thing.
Pentat something where
the modern pentathlon.
Get all the
that just made me think, can you imagine if that was a black person?
Child, the way they would have drugged, they would have stopped. Stop the play. We got to stop the whole Olympics because somebody going to jail. Yeah. I mean, that is just the reality that we're living in, and it's always important when having conversations of, you know, getting kids into the industry and you know, urban youth programming and all of these nonprofits and stuff that have well, not that they have popped up, they just come to my attention. They were already there. It's so important to me for the deliverers of that program, you know, to look like the kids that are gonna be in the program. Because how else are you going to be able to understand how they're showing up or what they experience if you have no idea what kind of life the kids have lived from the program that you're like, the kids that you're serving. Wow.
Yeah. And not only that, but like, there's so much that goes into it. So not only like their lived experience, but also like that culture's relationship with animals over time. Like, what has that been like? That culture's relationship to nature over time. This makes me think of, I listened to a podcast recently on NPR that interviewed that black forager.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I know who you're talking about. She's all quirky and dope, but yeah.
And she was just talking about how historically in Black communities, what it's looked like to have a relationship with the land, then be enslaved, have to be forced to work on the land, then moved into cities where then you're divorced from the land, and then it's just like the journey that we've had to go through and developing our relationship with land and with nature and with animals, and how that's been so fraught in modern history. And so I think that that's also knowledge that we have to take into account, that professionals need to take into account when we're talking about working with marginalized communities and our relationship with animals. Just because there's so many there's a million different ways to have a relationship with an animal, and everything. One of my mentors, Dr. Veronica Lack, who founded the Herd Institute in Florida, which is an equine-assisted mental health modality, she always says that one thing that's important to remember is that everything that we know about horses, or that we're taught about horses, at least in the United States, is through a white man's perspective, and how that is so influential in the ways that we relate to animals. And like, what would it mean for me to go back into my history and develop a different understanding of what it means for me and my cultural heritage to relate to animals.
Yeah, absolutely. I recall when I got my horse as a weanling in college, my dad was like, so what's he gonna do? Is he gonna like pull a plow? And I was like, who has a plow? Who be outside plowing? Not us. So why would he pull a plow? but learning his history and experience with horses, and talked about that. I had interviewed my parents on the last episode. Just him sharing like, the horses, like we put them on a cart for work. And he was talking about like how they were breaking horses, you know, for the ones that he had, and he was like, we just put sacks on them because we couldn't afford to get hurt because we had to work.
Right.
And so it's just like that, like, you know, people nowadays would probably like flip over the table. Like, oh my God. But then it's like, you know, some people can't afford to be out here cowboying these animals because they have to go to work. They got to make money. They got to support their families. You know, the horses were they were a tool.
Right.
So what do we,
not a hobby.
And so how do we not invalidate that experience? Because they didn't put themselves in that circumstance, you know, but it's still valuable. It's still there. It's still a connection. So I think about that a lot.
Yeah. I think that's so relevant.
Nutrena presents an uncompromising approach to superior nutrition. Nutrient-dense Empower products are scientifically designed for low feeding rates. Empower Digestive Balance supports overall gastrointestinal health and helps maintain normal gastric pH to keep them feeling their best. Empower Top Line Balance focuses on top line health and improvement and now includes chromium to support insulin-resistant horses. For more information on Empower products, visit neutrinaworld.com.
Tell me about more of the kind of anti-racism coaching.
Yeah.
And what that would look like for someone who is interested, because let me tell you, like, I should have known, because like entrepreneurship is like, I just love it. But I have been on some, basically what it sounds like, what you do, like talking to other entities about DEI work for free. And I'm like, see, I done looked at her website now, daggone it. What it said, I'm not teaching y'all about anti-racism for free anymore. I was like,
no.
You know what? You're exactly right. So tell me what that looks like for someone who would be interested in that.
Yeah, well, and let me say, I still do a lot of anti-racism work for free.
You know what? It is what it is at this point. I feel you.
Yeah. Do you mean specifically with horses, or what I do just like in my non-horse related?
So let's start with horses. Horses. Yeah,
that's what I'm most excited about, actually. So I'm partnering with, well, I'm not partnering with them. Actually, I'm faculty in training at the Herd Institute, again, which is an equine-assisted psychotherapy. It's an agency that teaches therapists how to partner with horses in therapy with clients. And so I'm in the process of getting certified with them so that I can co-facilitate teaching therapists how to work with horses in that capacity. And I'm also working with Dr. Lack, who is the founder, to create a program that is specifically geared towards therapists, mental health professionals, that we'll bring them on the farm and we'll have the horses around, and we will do some different equine facilitated learning activities designed to help people, therapists, uncover different blind spots and biases and create mission statements and work with and help them identify ways that they can work with clients in a more culturally informed way. And so we're doing this with individual therapists, like an individual therapist can sign up for a workshop, but we're also doing it for agencies like programs that do equine therapy, mounted equine therapy, like therapeutic riding agencies.
Right.
Because they have plenty of really awesome people that work with people of lots of different walks of life, and they want to learn how to do it in a culturally informed way. So it's really exciting. We just started rolling out that program this year. We have our first one coming up, our first day-long retreat happening in February of this year. And it's going to be really fun. I think it's a really cool way for people to engage in diversity, equity, inclusion training, like not in like a dry office setting. Like that can be valuable, like looking at a PowerPoint and like learning things, and that can be super valuable. I do that on the side. And imagine like integrating that learning in such a different way that is a little less intimidating in some ways. You're outside, so you're able to access all those different like coping skills, like taking a walk, being able to lay hands on an animal, like all those different coping skills to help you ground as you learn about some potentially triggering content. And I think it's just going to be really valuable, and I'm excited about it.
I am super excited about that as well. I have started doing leadership development in the equine experiential learning field, and it's amazing the transformations that you're able to get. We've been having to do a lot of virtual stuff, so that has its place, but getting that in person, understanding and experience and that there's a word that I'm looking for that I'm blanking on, but just being cognizant of what the horse is seeing and how they're kind of playing off of your energy and that response and being able to translate that, because as a facilitator, that's our job, is to translate, to facilitate the conversation and then translate the response. So
yeah, and I think what's cool about the work, at least in the way that we do it, is that it doesn't always require translation, because we're able to help people are feeling shifts in the moment, like, oh, I'm realizing that I have this reaction to this, and here's how I want to do something differently moving forward. And they actually get to do it, versus in my coaching sessions where I'm presenting material like in an office setting, then it's like, okay, next time try this. But with the horses, you get to say, like, go out and do it right now. Practice it right now. Practice this new skill that you're talking about right now with a horse and with people and in a group setting. And I really love that.
Yes. That is something else I wanted to bring up, because it is something that has become so important for me. And you said it on your website, the taking like consistency and balance and understanding what that means in relation to what you say your goals are and what you actually do to meet those goals. I love that. It drips with the expectation of authenticity as well as action. So tell me how you kind of got to that point.
Yeah. So I think, at least in regards to anti-racism and diversity and equity inclusion, a big thing I was noticing was this discrepancy between like what agencies and what programs, what individual therapists were saying on their private practice websites versus what they were actually doing. So like, if you're an agency or a program, whatever, don't come at me with your anti-racism statement when your president and the board of directors are all white, cisgender, able-bodied people, and most of the people that are in positions of power who are paid are white, cisgender, able-bodied people. And then the people on the ground, there might be some people of color. And then obviously your secretary is a bilingual Latina person, because you need someone who speaks Spanish. Like the what you're saying, like if you put out a statement after George Floyd was murdered, and then now 2 years later, everything about your agency still looks the same, miss me.
Miss me. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I work with people who are ready to identify that that's what's happening and are ready to be challenged on what they can actually do to make things different. I work with people who want that consistency.
Right.
They're not just saying they want that consistency, but are not prepared to actually do anything about it. Because I'm not afraid to drop people.
Yes. I feel that. How has that shown up for you personally in your life and with your own goals?
I love that question, because if I'm going to talk about being consistent, I also have to be consistent. Yeah. So for me, it's been doing a lot of training and receiving education from people who are on the margin. Like, for example, last year, my goal was that I was going to soak in as much learning about transgender folks as I possibly could. And I was going to learn and pay transgender people to help me understand that. And the year before, gosh, time is so weird. Last year's 2021. The year before is 2020. So that was a really amazing time to soak up all of the learning that people of color and Black people had to offer about the history of our country and where we've come from, where we are, what needs to be different. And so that's not to say that on all the other years I'm not learning about everything all the time, but I think that we've got so many amazingly educated people who have lived experience, who have so much to tell us, that are not necessarily in professional settings. Like, I don't want to learn from people who don't have the lived experience anymore. I want to learn from people who are impacted. And so that's been my goal, is paying people to tell me about their experience, about things that I'm privileged to not know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I love the fact that you pay for these things, you know, and it's like, that is one of the biggest pain points of this work, of that exchange of information. It's like, oh, I want to learn it, but I don't want to support you to get it, you know? Like, how to make sense?
We're expected to do so much work for free. And I'm lucky that I have I've got a really wide circle of people of all different walks of life. And so sometimes we'll do I mean, money is not the only thing that values. So sometimes we'll do some exchanges. Like I'll sit down with, I've got several therapist friends who are trans or differently abled or disabled. And so we'll just do like an information exchange, and I'll consult with them on cases of their clients of color. They'll consult with me on my cases with trans or non-binary clients. And so we really get building a community of people that have different lived experiences has been also a really important goal of mine, because my experience is not the only one.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you brought that up, because that brings up a whole another conversation about the importance of community. And how not only, you know, in your professional setting that has shown up, but as Black horse people, as Black horse folks, that is what this podcast is about. You know, it's you may not have that community. You may not be able to see them in your day-to-day life, but we're out here. We're out here, and we all have different lived experiences, and it should not only comfort you to know that there are other people experiencing the same thing as you, it should also inspire you to know that we are all completely different, and these are the possibilities that are available to you. So how have you been able to find community within the horse industry?
That's hard. There are a few, well, more now than when I was eventing regularly. I'm remembering being at a competition and like seeing another Black person like walking around with their horse, and I was like, and that also makes me remember how people would, because I competed a lot, and then people would come up and be like, "Oh, Elizabeth, I remember you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know you remember me, because I'm the only person that looks like me." And I have no idea who they are. Anyway, that's beside the point. I think that since I've stopped competing, it's been harder to find a community of people. The way that I've been able to do that is through social media. I love following Black equestrians on Twitter, Instagram mostly, and Facebook, and just like seeing their like wonderful brown faces while they're jumping their horses or shooting their arrows or doing dressage or doing all these things. And I feel like that's been so helpful for me, because I did not have that when I was younger. Seeing other people that looked like me, and it's so wonderful to see. I love watching Black people ride horses. I love watching Black people do all their I saw a TikTok the other day of someone who did a weave on her horse. And I always thought, like, if Black people, if we were like in the more dominant in horse sports, can you imagine the hairstyles? Can you imagine what a dressage ring, like a competition, would look like? Amazing.
Yeah. That's good. That's mean. I was like, if I've gotten this TikTok like 20 times today, y'all. Like, how about y'all go check out her episode on YBE? She's great. She's absolutely. And then it's like, you know, Chanel with Maine Tresses. She literally has a business doing the same exact thing. And it's like, that is only something that we would be able to pull off.
Yes.
Yeah, but I love that. I mean, social media has definitely been integral in bringing us together, especially, you know, the people who don't have, you know, anyone around them that that they can relate to and share, the things going on in their day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
When you come across other Black equestrians and, just different interactions, whether it be social media or in person, what level of, I guess, learning do you come across? Let me reframe. I have been, in the social media online space, connecting with people, and I feel like there's a assumption sometimes that we are Black equestrians, we're gonna think the same. There's a compartmentalizing of us, like, yeah, it's YBE, but we literally, everyone does completely different things. Like, we don't have the same ideas. We don't agree all the time. We don't have the same training methods. We don't have the same standards of whatever, we don't have the same budget. So, like, what have you, noticed in that kind of variation just within the Black horse community?
That's an interesting question. I think that so one thing that this brought up for me was just how behind I think that the equestrian world is in understanding diversity, equity, inclusion. And I think that what you're talking about is that, like, so much of the equestrian community, and I say that meaning like the white dominant equestrian community, like people in power, like USEA, USEF, all of the FEI, all of the major figureheads. And so I think that the trap that they get caught into that trickles down in its messaging to individual people is that Black people are a monolith and that we all have the same ideas. And that means that we're even more, I think, under a microscope individually. So, like, if one Black person does one thing wrong with a horse, like, actually, I remember 2 years ago, there was a Black man who, in an effort to get a message across about, I think, racism in America, he like rode a horse on a highway, and there was this like huge thing about it, and all the message board, Facebook, all of that was popping off about it.
Yeah.
And it just really felt like there was no opportunity to discuss like his particular relationship with horses and what, because like the whole community was like, oh, the horse shouldn't be on concrete and his hooves and he's clearly lame and all of this stuff. And I think that there's a broader conversation to be had about like, what is his relationship with horses? What are they typically used for? What is, I don't know. And so I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm just thinking about how like it felt like, okay, Black people need to respond to this to show that we know how to do horses, because they'll think that we're all like him because we're viewed as such a monolith still in that community, because the white dominated equestrian world in this country is so behind that. I feel like we're having to defend things and make arguments in the equestrian community that I was making 10 years ago in other communities.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so few of us.
Having to be on defense, thinking because the conversation is like, look what the Black people are doing to their horses. Like,
I had a conversation with somebody about how about like discrimination in horse sports, and one thing I brought up was like with helmets, for example, and how they're like, if they don't accommodate my afro or my big hair, like, then they're literally not safe for me. And the person that I was talking to, it was a white woman, and she like couldn't wrap her mind around how that was a form of discrimination, how that was a form of systemic discrimination. And it was like, even with the argument, like, I literally cannot find a helmet that is safe for my head without paying for like custom, like something that's custom, which I have to have a financial means to pay for that. Like, that means every time I get up on a horse, I am literally more at physical risk of brain injury. How is that not systemic to you? And so I feel like because a lot of the white folks in the horse community are at a privileged point, and when you're privileged, certainly socioeconomically, that means that you don't have to interact with Black people on a day-to-day basis because of how things work in this country. And so I feel like a lot of the people in power just don't have proximity to Black people and are not in community with Black people to be able to have some of these conversations that would take us forward in the horse community.
Yeah. And even with that, even the helmet that, because I did like a vlog of going into Dover and had a friend walk me through, and you can see people in the background like, yes, I will try all 10 of these helmets because they don't fit, but not even, it's like the helmet that I found that fit me, it was an adjustable Troxel helmet. But what it, like, people think Troxel is like the cheap, like, oh, that's the cheap version.
Right. I'm gonna get looks if I wear that in a show ring. Then what?
But now what? Like, I can't win. I can't win. It fits my head. It fits all this hair.
Yeah.
But even like with it's like a lot of times white people in the horse industry have a hard time feeling like they are privileged because they work hard.
Yes.
And that is that ain't the same.
No.
Those two things do not cancel each other out.
Right.
Privilege does not mean that you don't work hard.
Right.
Privilege means you can go in and buy a helmet and not have, it don't matter how much the helmet costs. You can go in, say, you know what, my trainer recommended that one, I'm gonna get that one, put it on what size I need, boom, I'm gonna get it. Okay, let's check out. Whereas I had to spend an hour and a half trying on, I tried on, I think 12 helmets before it was like, we're just gonna have to do the adjustable Troxel. Like I went all the way up to velvet and sparkly, all the way down to knock plastic, and had to find what worked. So between the styling of hair in the ring, like my friend was like, yeah, well, you're supposed to put a net on your head and then put the helmet on. And I was like, girl, I look like daggone Sonic the Hedgehog. You had to take this net off. Like, it's just, we just gonna have to go like this. Like, and so like, those are examples of privilege. And I think that's a big mental hurdle that white equestrians have to overcome to understand what their privilege even is. It is socioeconomic differences is an easy answer.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like we're so behind in conversations in the white dominated equestrian community, where because I know the exact conversation you're talking about, where people are like, well, I worked every day and I found a barn, let me work off lessons, and I didn't own a horse until I was 25, and that is why I'm not privileged. Not even mentioning, of course, that having proximity to a barn that would let you do that, that didn't have people running it that had different racial ideas that were in favor to you. Like there's so much that goes into being able to do that you're right. I think that is such a huge hurdle. I often, in anti-racism courses I teach for equestrian people, I hear that argument about, well, I have horses and that's why I'm broke. People think that we have money, but I have horses and that's why I'm broke. So I don't have money either. I'm like, but you, I don't know what to tell you. You could sell off your farm and then be okay. Whereas we're talking about wealth and class differences, and like the fact that you have a horse, that you have access to a barn, that you have access to land, that you have access to property, like all of that is wealth. All of that is class privilege, even if you are horse poor.
Yeah, you're being horse poor is a choice.
Yes, it's a choice. Yeah.
We just uncovered a whole secret out here.
Yeah.
So in doing this work, because it does get to be heavy sometimes, especially when it's met with opposition and people who are not understanding. In doing the line of work that you do and the experiences that you have, how do you take care of yourself and stay true to who you are?
I have hobbies that don't involve horses. I'm a musician, so that helps having, because for me, as the horses become more and more a part of my work life, I have to really differentiate for myself, like, what is work and what is play?
Yes.
When do I need to just step away from the barn and, you know, have them taken care of and be like, see you in a few days. Because it's hard when your hobby is also your work.
Yeah.
And especially like with horses, it's like there is no day off, as you know, there's no day off. So knowing when I need to phone a friend and be like, or get my partner to like take care of them or someone else feed them, so that I can lay on my couch and watch reality TV is really important, because there's no days off from horses. And like you said, it's a choice. And I'm privileged enough to be able to say, like, I need a pinch hitter right now.
Yeah. So tell me about your horses. What I feel like I completely skipped all that. What horses do you have? And I know you said you used to event, but what are you doing?
Yeah. So I stopped eventing because, the farther away you get from eventing, the harder it is to get back. Because like when I see people jumping or I scroll through my Instagram, it's like, I don't think I need to do that anymore. That is dangerous. That should be illegal. What are we doing? So I don't ride anymore because I really found that my drive is to compete. And I take care of two horses. One of them is mine. And my horse he's got heaves, he's got arthritis, he does not need to be ridden anymore. I bought him as a competition horse, and then the next year he got diagnosed with heaves, so we couldn't do cross country anymore. The year after that he got ring bone. I was like, all right, you don't want to be ridden.
Right.
And for me, I love people like you who like do a lot of trail riding and riding for pleasure. That's not me though. Like if I'm gonna ride, I need to be like working up for a competition. So eventually I might be in a place where I get a competition horse again, but for now I partner with them for the mental health therapy, and they're really, really wonderful therapists. And they're really, really wonderful lawn ornaments, and they are very happy.
That's awesome. Do you keep them like home with you, or are you in a barn situation?
Sort of neither. I lease a property that's a barn and 2 acres, and it's about 10 minutes from my house. And it works out really well. For a while when I was in Kentucky, I lived on a farm, and I loved that when I was in college. And I love that. And I think whenever I stop leasing this barn and do something different or get a competition horse in the future, whatever, I'll board him somewhere, because we just got dumped with like 10 inches of snow here in the mountains. And the anxiety I've had the last 2 or 3 days is out of control. Out of control, because I can't get to them and I'm worried about them. And so I want to get to a point where I'm going to pay someone else's job to take care of them. And then I'll call every few days and be like, are they still alive? All right, bye. See you when the snow's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
But I'm enjoying them right now. Yeah.
Oh, good. That seems like a nice setup. And I completely understand with the whole heaves and having to deal with that. I just lost my old man after Thanksgiving. I mean, honestly, every time I talk about him, people be like, oh, he's still here. So like it wasn't it wasn't like it was like the veterinarians were like, you're still doing this. I'm like, it's fine, we're still working. it's fine. But I hope that he still has a very long and therapeutic Zen life as he battles that.
Yeah, he seems happy.
Good. What advice could you give a young Black equestrian today?
I think what pops to mind is something that you said earlier, but just to find people that look like you who are doing what you're doing, and that can be on social media. Like it's wonderful, like you said, to be in like physical community with people. Like I'm imagining you and your folks, like after you go riding and like doing your campfire and like being in community with other Black people, like that's the dream. And for those of us who live in communities where that's not as accessible, like following people on the internet and like getting in touch with them and like reaching out and being like, I love what you're doing. And like just like building a community virtually, I think is so important, and not just following Instagram accounts of people of white people. I think seeing someone who looks like you doing what you're doing, that's what I could have used as a young Black equestrian, just to like that inspiration to like keep going,
right?
And not feel so alone or isolated, or like I was the only one doing it. So that's my advice. Find your community in whatever way that it looks like for you.
Yeah, I love that. So how can our listeners, our YBE fam, how can we get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you, more about your coaching and consultation, more about the program at the Herd Institute? Like, I'm gonna get those links afterwards, but just tell us how we can get in touch with you.
Yeah. The best way is just through my website, www.elizabethmccorvey.com, ELIZABETHMCCORVEY.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I absolutely just enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks. Me too. Thanks for making this happen.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to Young Black Equestrians, the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player as well as over on YouTube. And you know what? Do me a favor, leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Doing that makes it so that this platform and this content gets shared with Black equestrians all over the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you next time.